Thanks, Andy, for joining the video. How has the conference been so far?
It's been great. I think there's a renewed vigor around some of the efforts happening here in DC. I think, with the new administration coming in last year, there was a lot of change this time last year, and it feels like we've reached a point where people know their direction. I think that's given a lot of projects some real direction and some real confidence that they can push things forward. So it's been a great event, a lot of energy, a lot of really interesting developments, I think, across the industry that have been summed up over the course of the past 2 days. And I think it gives me a lot of optimism for where we're taking things in the US.
Nice to hear. And considering the panel sessions, your discussions here at the conference, what are your main takeaways from this conference?
One of the big ones for me is actually this idea of diversifying demand, right? And I think the flip side of maybe a changing pathway to electrification of vehicles is that we still have this more robust outlook now for stationary storage, for even drones, robotics, defense applications. And all of this sort of layering of demand is providing a much broader ecosystem of applications that's only going to benefit the efforts to scale up the battery industry. When we're talking about putting batteries in vehicles, we've always been up against this pressure to drive down costs, to make us competitive with other parts of the world here in the US. And I think what the real positive coming out of some of those new demand stories is that we don't have to be the lowest cost necessarily. This is about getting batteries to market at speed, at scale. And as that scale really does come to fruition, we'll see the cost advantages over time, the cost benefit. But I think it gives the whole industry a much stronger base to build upon.
Yeah, and as you said in your keynote yesterday, I think EVs, they will not go away. There will still be a demand driver. And who knows, in 3 to 4 years, there will be another administration with new EV incentives. So
is that demand will be there longer term one way or the other, and I think it's a timing question. But we see it, the people aren't pulling back. You see the automakers that have been here over the past couple of days speaking about what they're targeting. Yes, the shape of that demand has changed slightly. Yes, the speed of some of those efforts is changing, but I think what you really see is, yes, we're moving towards more electrification. Certainly globally, here in the US, we might pivot to hybrids, and we're definitely seeing that in our data, right? A lot more focus on that, but there's some really encouraging signs when you look at other parts of the automotive landscape which people don't talk about as much, commercial vehicles, heavy duty applications, all of those are really growing in a great way. And I think that almost, you can compare that to some of the growth when we've seen take off in other parts of the world, right? What happened in China, that was led by these larger scale e-buses, trucks, it's those type of applications that really created the market. So I think there's an opportunity. It will be a different shape, and I'm sure in 12 months time we'll be thinking it's changed again, but that demand will be there longer term. It's just when it kicks in. Yeah,
who knows, the macro sentiment can also change with the crisis in the Middle East. I think could be pretty supportive for the EV space and electrification more in general. And I mean, we've been organizing this event for years in the United States. We can easily compare. I mean, you seem pretty optimistic about this year's conference. Comparing it to last year, how much has the sentiment changed then for the industry?
I think it's pretty dramatic, and maybe I wouldn't say it's a wholesale change, but certainly a rebound. I think you probably have at the change of any administration, you have a huge amount of disruption, questions, and I think maybe more so than some other changes in administration last year, what you saw was a new way of doing things here in DC. There was a new approach, there was a new focus, a new prioritization. We're now talking more so about energy security and maybe a little bit less around this push towards EVs. How the policy infrastructure is sort of solidified over the past 12 months, I think, like I said at the start, gives companies the confidence to keep pushing forward, knowing what the administration is going to be backing, knowing how the policy landscape is going to look, certainly for this administration. It just gives people confidence. So I think last year there was a lot of uncertainty in the room, frankly. There were people asking the question of, we don't know which direction this is going to go. We don't know if we're still going to have the level of policy support that was being guaranteed under the Biden administration. That's now, I think, to a large extent shaken out. People see where things are, and they see the opportunity. And like I say, it's led to the focus around energy security actually only opens up a much broader demand base
Absolutely.
for this industry, and that's a real positive for everyone involved.
I absolutely agree. And I'm perhaps looking forward to just translating those, takeaways into priorities for the company, and also looking at our future events. We've got Giga Africa in Marrakesh, got Benchmark Week for the first time in Shanghai in China. Yeah, what is the future outlook looking like according to you?
Well, the reason that we do our events and we try and build these networks and bring different stakeholders together is really about fostering collaboration, right?
Yeah.
In one way or another. And I think the events we have upcoming that you mentioned in Marrakesh and then in Shanghai speak to the need to collaborate internationally. This isn't about just us working together to solve the problem of one location. This is a global problem. We need to bring together different skill sets, different profiles of company, different experiences, to build a much more sustainable future for this industry going forward. So we're really excited to, as you say, for the first time to take Benchmark Week to Shanghai. I think is a real statement of, there's no ignoring China in this supply chain.
Yeah.
Where it happens, exactly. So we're focused on highlighting that, hopefully fostering some of that collaboration with Chinese partners and other parts of the Asian battery community. And like I say, Marrakesh is another great example of this not being a one-dimensional industry or problem that we're trying to solve. A different set of priorities, a different set of investment and focus there in Marrakesh. So really excited to sort of see through our events calendar for this year. And of course, build back up to this. We're always going to be back in DC. We're always going to be taking these events to where the industry needs them. And that's really exciting at a time like this where so much is happening.
That's where it's all about, right? Having that global outlook, global connection to. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you. Appreciate it.